I'm Skaji. I'm a practicing witch and a professional tarot nerd. Today I'm a storyteller, and I'm glad you're here. It's spooky season, and this is another tale in a little series I'm calling the 13 Days of Halloween. I grew up out in the country. When I was growing up, I had plenty of adventures. Some of them were funny, others were exciting. Some were a little mysterious and spooky. Now, all of these stories are true, even if they didn't happen. My hometown was kind of small. We only had the one stoplight. They still only have the one stoplight there, but you wouldn't think that high school in a little town like that would have started out as a college. It was built in about 1900. Howe Agricultural College. It was part of a state program to help teach farming and other agricultural skills. And it was a nice campus, apparently a state-of-the-art for the time. There was even a residence built there for the first president. Now, the band director, when I was in school there, he and his family lived in this residence on campus there for a little while. And he'd tell us stories about hearing sounds, footsteps, late at night. And that they'd find that things had been moved, put away. Never could really explain it. Now, the first president of Howe Agricultural College was Dr. Harold Mickle. And I'd heard, they said he was a mean and strict and abusive man. Stern and without humor. And when he lived there with his son, Reginald. Now, they said that Dr. Mickle's wife had died of consumption some time earlier. Reginald had gotten kicked in the head by a horse. He was what they called at the time a little slow. These days we'd probably say special needs. But they also said that Reggie, that's what they called him, they said Reggie always seemed to be a nice kid. And as he got older, he would help out around the school. And even after Howe Agricultural College itself closed and they turned it into a more traditional high school, Reginald stayed in town. And he worked as a custodian there at the school. And he was there a long time. I knew some of the older folks who remembered him from when they were in school there, and they said that man always had a smile on his face. He was always right there to help if he could. Now, when I was in school there about this time, that old residence, nobody lived in it anymore. It was mostly used as storage. And from time to time, a band director would send one of us over there to get something or move something, or one of the teachers would need something out of there. And one day when the band director had asked me to go get something out of there, I thought, I wonder what goes on out there at night. They said they could still hear the sounds in that old place. Now, I absolutely did not forget to return that key on purpose. And I absolutely did not go back out there to that campus late that night without permission. But when I got out there, I unlocked that door, went in with my trusty old flashlight. It was a full moon that night, I remember. I could see the light from that big old moon coming in the windows. It almost lit the place just fine without my flashlight. And I got to looking around, and even though there were metal shelves put in here and there, and boxes and other miscellaneous things scattered around, and you could see still how it had been somebody's home at one point. I was walking around in there, taking it all in, shining my flashlight around, and thought I heard a sound behind me, footsteps walking up. Heavy old boots on those hardwood floors. And I thought I heard a voice. It was almost like a whisper. You're not supposed to be here. Well, I was startled. And I turned in a rush and thought I saw a form standing in front of me. I took a step back and I tripped over something. Fell into one of those shelves which rocked back and forth until it came tumbling down, boxes and shelf alike, falling right on top of me. That hurt a little bit, but that wasn't as bad as hearing those footsteps come running. I was struggling to get out from underneath that old metal shelf, and as the moonlight filtered in through one of those windows, I looked up. There stood a man. He wasn't too terribly tall, built kind of slight, wearing an old pair of dungarees, some big old work boots. And as I looked up, I saw this man over me. He had this concerned look on his face. I didn't know who that might have been, but I said, "Help me. I'm stuck under this shelf." He nodded, kind of smiled a little bit. He reached over and he lifted that shelf up so it didn't weigh a thing. And I crawled out from underneath it. Boxes and papers scattered all around. And I turned to that man. I said, "Thank you." And he just smiled and nodded. And as I was looking at him, bald, worse than me. And he had this scar on the side of his head. He just looked at me and he smiled, and then he turned and he pointed. And he pointed at a place on the floor. I said, "Well, what's over there?" He didn't say nothing, he just pointed. "Do you want me to look over there?" He nodded and smiled. So I went over to where he was pointing. And there, sort of in the corner, a couple of loose boards, and he pointed at them. So I was able to get those boards out, and I shined my flashlight down in that, and there's an old shoebox in there, and I took that old shoebox out, and he pointed at it, and he smiled. I said, "This yours?" Nodded. I opened that up, and inside there was a stack of papers. On every one was a drawing. They were beautiful drawings. Pencil. Are these yours? And smiled and nodded. These are good, I said. And he just smiled so big. And through that moonlight, he sort of faded away. And I thought that must have been Reggie. These must have been his drawings. He just wanted to share. Well, I didn't feel I could take them, and I didn't want to tell anybody about them because I didn't want them to know I'd been there, even though I was there with permission. So I put that shoebox back in there, and I put those loose boards back, and I crept my way out. Nobody ever did figure out why all those boxes were on the floor. And I never did tell anybody about Reggie's drawings. Several years after I graduated, the high school itself, it burned. And when they rebuilt it, the stories of all of those mysterious sounds sort of faded into memory. Now I still wonder, because that old residence building is still there. I wonder if old mean Dr. Mickle and his very kind son Reggie are still moving about. I want to thank you for spending some of your time with me today. I hope you've enjoyed this little story about the ghost of Howe Agricultural College. If you did, please like, subscribe, share. My name's Scott. Safe journeys.